Today I'm going to continue answering some questions about the saints. For instance, what if we are praying to a saint who never existed? Is that bad? Trigger warning, I will be talking about Santa Claus. To hear the answer to this question and others, stick around. Hello, my name is Father Ambrose Little, and I teach philosophy at the Dominican House of Studies. Welcome to Aquinas 101, Big Questions, Little Answers, the series where I do my best to answer your big questions about philosophy, theology, and more. One of our viewers asked the following question. With the likelihood that some canonized saints are legends or made up, what are the implications or dangers of asking for the intercession of saints we are not confident ever existed? This is an interesting question. But before I answer it, let's give some context. Why would there be canonized saints who might not have existed? The first thing to note is what it means to be canonized. This word comes from the Greek word for a list. So to be canonized means to be added to the list of known saints or holy ones who are revered by the Church. Now, the canonization process has changed through the centuries, and today it is a bit more rigorous than in previous ages. In the modern process for canonization, there is a lot of investigation and documentation required to show the sanctity of a person, including the verification of miracles. But in previous ages, the process was more informal. If the sanctity of a person was recognized and honored in a certain area, that was sufficient for an individual to be added to the list or calendar of the Church's celebrations in that region. If the devotion to that saint spread widely, then the individual would be added to the universal calendar. But what about saints who might not have existed? There are a few traditional saints whose historicity we are a bit unsure about. How did they get on the calendar? To answer that, we have to consider that in a world where many people were unable to read, knowledge was passed down orally, often in easy-to-remember images and stories. Sometimes these stories and images might embellish characteristics associated with an individual. Sometimes biographers would use common tropes to help the listener encode information about a saint's virtues or notable characteristics. In those cases, the events described may not be literally true about the saint, but instead are symbols of a real virtue had by the saint. So these tropes are true insofar as they identify a real feature of the saint, even if the story may not be a literal historical fact. Now, it sometimes happens that due to similarities in a saint's biography, iconography, or even the saint's name, the hagiography of several individual saints might get mixed together. This is most clearly the case in the example of Santa Claus. The modern American conception about the figure of Santa Claus tends to blend together features from the lives of St. Nicholas and St. Claus, as well as some features of a mythical spirit referred to as Father Christmas. There is a lot of interesting research into the history of the figure of Santa Claus, but the important point for our purposes is to highlight how there is in this one popularized person the blending of the biographies of several individuals. What is more, because there really was a St. Nicholas and a St. Claus, we can ask for the prayers of both men without a problem. Even if in some distant future people would forget that two saints are referred to in the legend of Santa Claus, there will nevertheless be a real saint, even two real saints, ready to answer their prayers. I suspect that some of the legendary saints whose historicity we doubt are similar to the Santa Claus story. Like as not, there were one or many real people whose stories were blended together in a mythic way, such that we cannot identify one historical person to whom the stories refer. That does not mean that there is no saint waiting to answer your prayers when you offer them. There almost certainly is a saint behind the myth, and in fact, there may be many saints. There is another possible origin for the saints we are not sure existed. Some of these legends may have their origins in morality tales meant to teach people about how to live a virtuous Christian life. As the tale proliferated through the ages, the central figure of the morality tale may have been personified and thought to have been a real person rather than just a figure. Although I doubt this happened often, in this case, the supposed saint would have arisen from the story, not from a real person. Does that mean that there is no one answering your prayers when you pray to this saint? I think there is someone answering your prayers. There are many anonymous saints in heaven, many of whom probably are excellent exemplars of the virtues extolled in the morality tales that may have given rise to a mythic saint. It seems likely to me that one of them would be tasked with answering your prayers. For just as some authors prefer to write under a pseudonym, or a nom de plume, so a saint may be responding to your prayers under a pseudonym, or what I like to think of as a nom du prayer. That may sound like a specious way to cover up a mistake by the Church, but I beg to differ. We only think so because we live in an age with very specific expectations about historical narratives, expectations that our forefathers would not have had in ages where myths and legends had greater importance. That does not mean that our forefathers were naive or liars, but rather that they encoded historical information in a different way than we do, a way that is more easily retained by the human mind. That is why both C.S. Lewis and Tolkien insisted that myths were true, just not true in the sense a historian thinks of truth. C.S. Lewis says the following in his book on miracles. The truth of miracles, quote, involves the belief that myth in general is not merely misunderstood history, as euhemerus thought, not diabolical illusion, as some of the fathers thought, nor priestly lying, as the philosophers of the Enlightenment thought, but, at its best, a real, though unfocused gleam of divine truth falling on the human imagination. End quote. So is there any danger in praying to saints who are on the Church's calendar and whose historicity is questionable? No. For in God's mercy, there is likely a real saint on the other side, ready to answer your prayers. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Big Questions, Little Answers. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, may God bless you and keep you in His grace. I hope that answers all your questions, but if not, please let us know by submitting your big questions using hashtag AskAFriar in the YouTube comments and on social media. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.